Guys, welcome to Jammin' and Jammies. I'm Megan Barker. We are sitting down with some of our favorite music creators and industry leaders. They're going to share how they got where they are, as well as hopefully some valuable insights into the music industry. You can watch the interviews online or listen to the podcast. We also do a live stream every Sunday night on Instagram, so just check out jamminandjammies.com for all of the details. Today, we are sitting down with Charlie Mattos, and Charlie is the co-host of the Nashville staple Coffee, Country, and Cody. You've heard it. It's on WSM, home of the Grand Ole Opry Radio. I'm a huge fan. I'm really excited to find out what a day in the life of Charlie is like. So let's welcome him. Charlie, how are you doing?
Well, first off, I am about as casual a guest as you're ever going to go, but I hope the Manchester United hoodie is good enough. I just couldn't pull off jammies for Coffee, Country, and Cody in the morning, and I'm still here in our production studio after the show. So, but I am doing well, and I've been looking forward to it. Thank you for asking me to be a part of this.
I'm so happy you're here, and you know what? The sweatshirt is close, so we're good. And
Okay.
I'm excited that you're on site of where the action happens every day. But I want to start at the beginning. Will you just tell everyone where you're from and just did you love music as a kid? How did you get here?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I grew up just outside of Providence, Rhode Island. And I am honestly, Megan, one of those lucky people that from about the age of 5 or 6, I'm literally doing the only thing I've ever wanted to do. I mean, I fell in love with radio, not necessarily music or country music, but radio at a very early age. I can vividly remember taking this old transistor radio. And if you're old enough, you can remember the transistor radio had like one earplug, and it was kind of a beige earplug, but with a mini jack that plugged in. And I would just take that to bed at night before I fell asleep and just kind of scan the dial. And I was fascinated by all these stations I could pick up at night from different cities. And it just seemed magical to me. So at that point I just kind of decided that's what I wanted to do. And yeah, I really am just one of those lucky people who is doing the only thing he's ever wanted to do. So, but yeah, so I grew up in Providence, went to broadcasting, majored in broadcasting at the University of Miami. I worked down there 5 or 6 years after graduating, and I've been in Nashville more than half my life. This past December was 30 years for me in Music City. So I guess I'm a Nashvilleian now that I spent more than half my life here.
I'd say so. You're honorary now.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah, exactly.
what brought you to Nashville?
So the radio station I was working at in Miami, they actually changed format. They went from a News Talk AM station to a satellite oldies station, and literally they let go 29 people in one day. And it wasn't performance oriented. The station was doing fine. They just changed format. So I ended up moving to Nashville to do work at the other end of the AM spectrum at 1510 WLAC, where I worked for 9 years. And then I've been here with Bill Cody at WSM for a little over 16.
Wow. Well, you've dabbled in the sports world, we could say. So how did you get from kind of sports to music?
You know, yeah, it's kind of a funny story. I filled in one morning for Bill's news guy, Ron Jordan. And then I filled in for Bill's news guy, Kevin Ingram, one time. And then Kevin left, and I was already here. And it just kind of worked out that, well, I can do sports and I can do news. And it eventually evolved into a producer role and kind of a co-host role. And it just, yeah, it's just been kind of crazy how that path led me to here. And it's been the last 16 years of my life. But I have to admit, though, between Bill Cody in the morning and Eddie Stubbs for many years at night, now they were kind of like my country music 101 introductory class at college, so I knew radio, but I didn't know country music. And between those two guys, I feel like I got a pretty good education.
Wow. So would you say that you're a huge country fan after all these years then?
Oh yeah, I like a lot of it, and I like a lot of the new stuff. I like a lot. I'm a huge. I mean, going back in years, I love Ray Price. Big Ronnie Millsap fan. By the way, "Girl Who Waits on Tables" is one of my Millsap songs fans. I send that out to your dad. Love Mary Chapin Carpenter, and of the newer guys, I mean, I think those harmonies of Dan and Shay are just incredible. So yeah, I've really grown to be a big fan.
That's amazing. I was just going to say, you've been in Nashville a long time. You've seen a lot of generations of country music. I was going to ask, do you have a favorite era? But I guess you kind of just answered that.
Yeah, a little bit of everything. I became a huge Garth fan when the whole world became a huge Garth fan. So that still kind of hits home because that's when it just kind of really took off in my mind.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, take us into a typical day for Charlie Mattos. You get up super early, am I right?
Yeah, my alarm rings. I come in earlier than most people would. I'm an only child, so I tend to be really productive when I'm by myself. And so I come in, I usually get here by 3 a.m. And that gives me a
Oh,
little over 2 hours before we start the show to
wow.
do all sorts of stuff, prep for Bill, interview prep, download music, news, weather. If I get everything done ahead of time, I can walk around the hotel and get some cardio in. Because believe me, the Opryland Hotel, where our studio is, for folks who've never been, you can get your cardio walking from one end of this hotel to the other.
Yeah.
So yeah, so my alarm, Megan, rings at like 1:45 in the morning. I
That's
tell people
usually
kind of like,
when I go to bed.
yeah, whoa, believe me, when I lived downtown at Market Street Apartments for almost 20 years, and you would be amazed how many people I would see as I'm about to start my day as they're coming in at the end of the day. We cross paths. Many of them did not remember seeing me, while I very well remember seeing them. But I tell people jokingly, it's kind of like going back to kindergarten or first grade. You take a nap in the afternoon and you go to bed about 8:30, and that's if I take a nap, I'm a happy camper. So.
That's amazing. I'm a huge fan of 20-minute naps. I talk about it all the time. I love power naps. That's awesome. And I'm glad that you mentioned Opryland Hotel. It is massive, and for people who don't live in Nashville, you guys do the show in the Opryland Hotel. Well, under normal circumstances.
Yeah, I'm right now, as you're watching this, this is, we're early in 2021 and we're still doing a lot of stuff on Zoom. I'm the only one physically in the studio. Bill Cody's at his home in Cross Plains, zooming in. Our entertainment reporter, Megan Alexander, is at her home in Franklin. Eric Markham and Joel Wilson, who coordinate and run the show for the Circle TV portion of our show, they're over at the Opry House in a beautiful state-of-the-art production room too. So we're kind of scattered all around Middle Tennessee. But yeah, for many of the 16 years and in normal times, which I hope we'll return to soon, our studio is right in the Magnolia lobby. There are big bay windows that look in. It's kind of like a fishbowl. And we used to see people all morning long. They'd stop and watch 15, 20 minutes. If we had a big guest in studio, they might stand outside for an hour watching. So it's a great location for a radio station. I mean, I try not to take it for granted, because I worked at places that had great equipment, but some that you don't even get a window. It's kind of like a communist debriefing center. You can't even know where you are. And here it's just a beautiful place to broadcast from.
It's probably, I haven't been very many places in the world yet, but it's one of my favorite places in the world. And actually, fun fact, my parents were one of the last couples to get married in the conservatory, like 30 plus years ago.
Yeah. Oh, so cool. Yeah, very cool.
Okay, so do you ever get nervous anymore for anything?
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, I've been really lucky the last 2 or 3 years to start doing more and more announcing at the Grand Ole Opry. And there is a huge difference between talking to potentially thousands of people, and with online streaming and our Circle television reach, people are all over the country and all over the world, but you can't see them. And even though they can see you, you can't see them, so there's no nerves factor there for the most part. But 4,000 people at the Opry House and every eye is on you at that podium. It's a totally different ball game. So yeah, I love doing it, and there's an energy to a live show with a live audience like that, but it still makes me nervous. Yeah, I still feel butterflies, and that's good. Maybe the day I don't is the day I don't do a very good job. I think I think a little bit of nerves kind of keeps you on your A game. A lot of nerves can paralyze you, but a little bit of nerves I don't think is a bad thing.
I don't blame you for being nervous though. I mean, it's iconic and there's a lot of pressure, but it's amazing. What a fun job. And there are some hardcore Opry fans. Do you ever get recognized?
It happens on occasion. They usually tend to recognize the voice more than they would ever recognize what I actually look like. But I was very excited last year in like February. My name made the program, so I thought, well, this is now a good step in the right direction. I've made the program. So.
Okay, can you tell us what has the changes been like? What have the changes been like with COVID and your daily routine and WSM in general? What have things been like?
Yeah, for me, I've been lucky. My family, my wife's been working from home. She's a nurse, but she works in risk management, so she's not on the floor for a dialysis company. So she's been working from home since mid-March of 2020. And I have a 7-year-old. I know, hard to believe with this face. I snuck him in at 49. But but he's in second grade. So he's been doing school online. And even though now we have the option that he could go back, he's done well online. And just as a precaution, we've just kind of kept him online for the rest of the year. So they're home all the time. I've still been able to come in and at least have some sense of normalcy. It's hard to believe when we first kind of locked everything down, radio, Bill and I were considered essential employees. I'm not sure how on earth what kind of scale rules me essential, but nonetheless, I was thrilled to be able to come in. But yeah, it's logistically different having, instead of your host who you've worked with for 15 years being, 5 feet away from you, he's on a Zoom and everybody's on a Zoom. Every interview we've done for the past 12 months has been on a Zoom. And, if you watch any kind of live interview programming where it's music or CNN or Fox or MSNBC, ESPN, everybody's doing it, and some work flawlessly, and sometimes there's a glitch and people are they frozen or is he going to come back? How long do we wait? So it's we've dealt with the same things that I think a lot of people have dealt with. So
you got to be quick on your feet, but luckily you guys in radio, you're quick on your feet. You have to be all the time. Okay, just a fun question: how do you take your coffee?
I take my coffee. I like plain coffee, but flavored creamer. I don't like flavored coffee per se, but I do like, I'm a sugar-free French vanilla for the creamer. Yeah. And the coffee itself, I'm not terribly picky. I grew up in New England, so I always say Dunkin' Donuts is the coffee of my people. So if given an option, I default to Dunkin' Donuts.
Oh, I love Dunkin'. I definitely don't have a Starbucks cup sitting here, but I'll take whatever's nearby and available.
Yeah.
Okay, so your bio says that you've been like a longtime voice of the Vanderbilt women's basketball. I've watched a few of your YouTube interviews. Tell me about all of that.
Oh yeah, so when I was a kid, what I really wanted to do in radio was play by play. Because I just thought these guys have the best jobs ever. They get to go to the games, they get in for free, and then they pay them. I mean, what they get paid to watch a game? This is the best deal ever. So yeah, my first season doing Vanderbilt was 1993. So I've done that 27 years. We went to the Final Four the first year I ever did the women's team. So yeah, and it's much like doing an Opry show. There's an energy to doing a game courtside, with a big crowd, and it's a big game, and maybe Pat Summitt in Tennessee will come into town, and there's 15,000 people in there. There's an energy and an adrenaline that goes through you for a big game like that. But even that's changed this year. I was doing home games courtside with a mask the entire time, and road games on a setup from my loft, watching the broadcast on ESPN Plus with crowd noise pumped in from the venue. So even that was a change this year. So nothing has been normal. Yep.
Nothing has been normal except the Dunkin' coffee. That's been normal.
Yes, that stays consistent. Yes.
Okay, so what is your favorite sport?
I grew baseball probably growing up. I'm a huge soccer fan. I love English Premier League soccer. So with the time change on my goofy schedule, believe me, I wake up at 4:00 on the weekend and that's sleeping in. So those 6 a.m. English Premier League games are right in my wheelhouse. So yeah, I'm a big soccer fan. Got season tickets for our MLS team here in Nashville. Hoping to go to some games this year. Hopefully that's going to happen well. And soccer and baseball probably my big two.
I mean, it's looking like things are going to be normal, semi-normal, maybe toward the end of the year. I was sitting on a panel with a bunch of, I was listening into the panel. I wasn't part of the panel, of a bunch of booking agents the other day. And they were saying, hopefully fall, the end of the year, maybe things will be a little more normal. So fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, your life has probably been affected a lot like mine, where you can still do a lot of the things you do, but it's the different vibe of doing a songwriter round with a crowd at the Bluebird or Douglas Corner or 12th and Porter or wherever, or doing it virtually via Instagram, where you can see that the people are there. You can see their comments. You got the little number tally in the corner, but it's not the same. It's functional, but it's different. So, our lives have kind of been affected similarly in that respect, I would think.
Absolutely. I think if you have any kind of life in music, this last year has been extra challenging. I think we were kind of the first ones to get shut down, and I think we're going to be the last ones to come back. I did music live music every night full time. That was my job. And then I would do jammies, and man, I do miss doing the Jammie show live, but it's been such a blessing to be able to do it on the internet and still connect with people and bring them music. And some people are still out risking it more than others. And there's still a lot of us that are sitting at home. So it's been fun to be able to bring them content like this. and keep people connected and entertained. So
Mhm.
it's been great. Okay, I have a fun random question. You're gonna laugh at me. I'm a huge fan of the show Frasier.
Okay.
And I also love the idea of the radio world. Maybe in another life I would do radio. I don't know. But is it anything like Frasier? Have you ever seen Frasier?
Oh yeah, I've seen Frasier. Well, I've worked in talk radio for a long time too, so I kind of can appreciate that aspect of it. Um, I will say this: the most interesting things always tend to happen off the air, and Frasier was much like that as well. So um, yeah, so I would say there's probably a little bit of more reality in that there was in WKRP in Cincinnati. If you can go back in time to that one, I think. Yeah.
I wonder too if this is a little bit more exciting, the country music world and celebrities, than maybe stuff that's going on in Ohio or Florida or wherever. Maybe there's a little more drama and excitement when you're talking about famous people.
Oh yeah, and it's just fun to, you know, and I'm lucky. I have really never been let down. There have been a lot of people I've been because they always say you don't want to meet your heroes because then if you're let down, it's so crushing. But everyone who I've ever wanted to meet in this business that I have has just been terrific, and I'm lucky from that perspective too, because everybody loves Bill Cody. And when they come in, they're already happy to see Bill and they're already in a good mood. So I tend to meet them when they're already in a great mood to begin with. So that I get the benefit of the doubt on that one. So
Yeah. Well,
mm,
okay, I have two questions. I have COVID brain, so I'm going to spit them out at the same time so I don't
okay.
forget. First of all, is what has it been like building a relationship with Bill Cody over the years? I imagine you guys are good friends after all this time. And favorite celebrity story, of course.
He and I hit it off for exactly the reason I started this interview off. He has been a radio junkie, and it's the only thing he's ever wanted to do. He started on air at a small station in his hometown when he was 12 years old. So, I mean, you can have a nice career in this business and not have it be the only thing you've ever wanted to do, and you can be very successful. But I think when you truly have that passion, much like being a singer songwriter, I mean, there are people who can stumble into it and you have a nice voice and sure, you can do all right. But those who have the only thing they've ever wanted to do and they picked up a guitar at 5 or 6 and right, it's just different. So we connected on that level really early on. So that helped a lot, I thought. Yeah, and he's just one of those guys who the guy you hear on the radio is pretty much the guy you would go meet at Kroger if you ran into him or at the post office or at the library.
Yeah.
It's not like a Jekyll and Hyde personality where there's the radio persona and there's the real human being. It's the same guy, and that makes life pretty easy, I
But you seem like that too. And I bet he gets
think.
recognized quite a bit at the grocery store down too, huh?
Yeah, well, him way more than me because for years he was on GAC and
Right.
Tennessee's File Side, and he's been on that Opry announcer stage for well over a decade. So yeah, if I get it a little, he gets it a lot. So
Yeah. And you've been doing this for so long. I imagine there's been a lot of newbies that maybe came across WSM, did an interview, and they were brand new, and now they've blown up. Is that a real thing?
oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bill famously, the first time I think we were Blake Shelton's first ever radio interview, and he came in with a big mullet going on and did Austin in studio with just him and a guitar. So yeah, it's happened with a lot. And then that's the beauty, though. The one thing we get to do here that a lot of stations, it's not that they don't want to do it, it's that they're just corporately not allowed to do it, is we can take the time and really let a segment breathe and not just have somebody come in, play the new single, we talk for 2 minutes and we're done. And that's corporate radio for a lot of places. And we especially when we can have people in studio, we can spend 45 minutes to an hour with them and play 2 songs and have them bring a guitar and do a couple songs live and really get to know them. And so I think when they leave, I think they enjoy it as much as we do, and that's when it's a win-win.
I think that's what makes WSM so special and what you guys do so special, especially as an artist and a songwriter. You know, just to be able to sit there and relax and not feel like there's pressure and time. You guys can just have a real conversation. It's amazing. I love what you guys do. It's such a special thing down there. And then I do want to circle back to if you have any favorite celebrity stories.
Oh gosh. Well, I've gotten to do a lot of weird little things. Like one year we were doing a remote down at CMA Music Fest, and we were doing 2 days worth of shows at the Ernest Tubb Record Shop. So we're right in the heart of like 80,000 people coming and going, and the roads are blocked off. and we had Mel Tillis on, Country Music Hall of Famer, Grand Ole Opry star, and he was running a little late. So he literally pulls up, and I go out to meet him, and he tosses me his keys and go, parallel park that for me while he goes to get it with Bill. So I'm parallel parking Mel Tillis's car, and I'm like, oh, please don't let me hit anything. So I did okay. I did okay on that one. I made Chris Christopherson a pot of coffee one time. That was kind of cool. Yeah, just it's those goofy little things that you tend to remember, So
Wow,
yeah.
unbelievable. Okay,
Mhm.
if somebody watching this, I mean, most of our followers are aspiring songwriters and artists, but I'm sure there's somebody in here that maybe wants to pursue radio and thinks that you have this amazing career. What advice do
Mhm.
you have for somebody who wants to get into radio?
Wow. Boy, if you have a hometown station that's a small AM that you can get into, that's huge. Just and if your heart is really in it, do anything they ask you to do. My first job where they paid me to do anything is I was just babysitting ABC Talk Radio overnight from midnight to 5. And all I had to do was stay awake and make sure the commercials played when they were supposed to play. And that's my only duties. But I would stay till like 8 or 9 in the morning and help out and do anything I could on that live morning show that they had. And it just eventually paid off. So that would probably be my first piece of advice. And then just practice talking. If you want to do sports, bring a tape recorder, take your iPhone and just sit far away from somebody and just practice doing play by play, and then go back and listen to it. Simple things like that. I embarrassingly somewhere still have Memorex cassettes of me doing baseball games with my dad way away from all these other people, so I didn't bother anybody, from when I was like 11 or 12 years old. I shudder to hear what they sound like, but I think I got them somewhere.
Do you still ever run lines or intros or anything before you go live, or are you pro now and you trust yourself?
No, what I'll do a lot of times is at least listen ahead of time to get the intro time of a song and the feel of it, because the last thing you want to do is step on the vocals of that kind of thing. So no, I'll run through it. Yeah, I had a program director tell me one time, and it's probably true: the best ad libs are scripted. So make it sound spontaneous, but know what you're going to say. So
Wow. Well, how much research goes into your daily interviews and segments?
I can't even remember how I did stuff before Google and Wikipedia and websites and
Right.
talk points and all that stuff. I mean, I'm sure I did. I'm sure I did my research, but I don't know how I did it. And it's so much easier now. But yeah, I do like to go in. I like to go in prepared with and not stuff scripted, because I like to have enough stuff it that we can go as long as we need to go. I think that's probably the best way to put it. But the key also is listening, because I'm sure you've heard interviews or done interviews with people, and you can kind of tell that all they're waiting for is for you to finish so they can do their next thing. It doesn't really matter what you said. It's just they're just going to the next thing on the bullet on the thing, and Gene, Gene Watson tells a wonderful story about the legendary Porter Wagner, about being on his show. And he would say, Porter wouldn't listen to the answer. So he'd ask, how you doing, Gene? And he'd be like, well, I don't know. I don't feel too great, Porter. Great to hear it, so because he's not paying attention. So the best part is just the best advice is to listen. Because if you listen, then it just goes different little places. That's a big key thing, I think.
Yeah, I don't have
Yeah.
many pet peeves, but that's one of them, is when you feel like someone's not listening to you and you're like,
Right.
why am I even talking?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, you have wonderful advice and insight. I love talking to you and to people like you, that I do think there's a difference between people that kind of stumble into their passion and people who it is a lifelong thing and you can't see yourself doing anything else. That's why you stayed 4 or 5 extra hours at the studio early on. And I just admire that so much. Is there anyone, a new artist, someone that maybe you're a fan of, you stumbled on Instagram or something, that you'd like to see on the Opry stage soon, that maybe hasn't done that yet? Is there anyone you're rooting for?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. The Opry has been really opened armed, especially over the last few years, that so many people have gotten to do an Opry debut. We Zoomed earlier this week with Willie Jones, who's got an incredible new song called "American Dream," and it's powerful and emotional, and it's incredibly personal. Um, but you know, that's out of the box kind of thinking, but it fits. And you know, we had Whitney Duncan on earlier, who made her Opry debut probably 12 years ago, but it's been a while since she's been on that stage, and she's got a new record, and she's going to be on this weekend too. So that's what I really love about the Opry is you know, they are welcoming, and yet at the same time, you know, folks who have been members for decades are still welcome there, like you know, Bill Anderson and Jeannie Seeley and John Conley, who I never get tired of seeing or hearing any of those people. So it's just a wonderful smorgasbord of the old and the new and the in between, but it somehow works, you know.
Man, I would love to know if there's one moment that stands out to you at the Opry or the Ryman or whatever. Is there any moment where you were just like, this is crazy?
Wow. Well, I will say this, and if this, and you know, who knows where people are watching this, because you know, with the availability of the web, it could be finding me anywhere. If you've never seen a show at the Ryman, I will say this about the Ryman: it is one of those places that elevates anything that's there. I mean, if it's a good show, I think the Ryman makes it great. If it's a great show, the Ryman makes it one of a kind. First thing I ever saw at the Ryman Auditorium, and it wasn't long after they started doing stuff there again, was Mary Chapin Carpenter. I saw her back-to-back nights on the Stones in the Road tour, and I just fell in love with the place. Acoustically, it's brilliant. I love the history of it. I love that they've modernized it yet kept it old, which is not an easy thing to do. You know, I mean, that's a tough combination there. So. Yeah, I just love that place. Saw Springsteen on the acoustic tour from the fifth row. But I think the one moment that I truly have had where it was just one of those, what am I doing here? And how did I even get here moments is I got to MC the Habitat for Humanity night at the Ryman about a year and a half ago. I think it was October 2019. And President Carter was on stage. His wife Rosalind was on stage. Garth and Trisha are headlining.
Wow.
And I'm like, how did I get here? Wow. How did I luck into this gig? You know, and it helped, and it went so well too, because it's like the one time you don't want to screw that up, and it went so well. And so that's a highlight moment. That it really is, you know.
Is it truly better to be watching the show at the Ryman or the Opry from side stage than anywhere else in the auditorium?
You know, I'll tell you this, it's an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
And I love getting to visit with people back when you actually could visit with people, you know, backstage. I love that aspect of it. You don't hear well at all, though, the side stage, backstage. You hear it much better front of house. Yeah, much better front of house. So it's a totally different experience. And I would recommend that if anybody ever wants to get that experience, take the backstage tour at the Opry House, because it's fantastic. You get to go on stage, you get your photo in the circle, you get to see all the dressing rooms, the green room, you get to really feel like what it's like there. And especially if it's a show night, you get to do it, but then you get to go back out front and watch the show from the front of the house, because it really does sound better out front than it does where I am.
Do you remember your first time at the Opry or the Ryman?
Oh yeah. Vividly. Terrified the first time I had to announce anything at the podium. And I started talking, and I think I forgot to turn the mic on. So Bill Cody came over and popped the mic on for me. And then I walked away, and I think I forgot to turn the mic off. So he's like, okay. So
you're nervous, I'm sure.
Oh gosh, yeah. But I can remember the first time I was at the Opry. I wasn't working. I vividly remember the first time I was there as a fan, because when I moved from Miami to here, my parents were the happiest people on the planet. I mean, they liked Miami, but they were country music fans big time. They watched TNN. When I got to introduce them one time to Ralph Emery backstage at Nashville Now, it was like introducing them to the president. It was the biggest deal, you know? So the first time they came, we went to the Opry and bought tickets, and we went to the Opry. And it was just one of those incredible nights, because Garth was there really early on in his career, but then also Roy Acuff Bill Monroe, Del Reeves was there that night. Tom T. Hall was there that night. So I got Grandpa Jones. So I got to see so many of the legends that we have lost, and yet get Garth really early in his career. So that's my, I still have the ticket stub and the program. That's my first night at the Opry. I would have said, I'm guessing probably sometime in the fall of 1991.
Wow, what a memory.
Mhm.
Okay, I was going to ask too if you've ever had any memorable fumbles. You were just mentioning turning on the mic on and off. Are there any other fumbles that stick out?
Well, on a daily basis, I do, I'm sure I mess up something on a daily basis. Yeah. Oh gosh. All right. So as a songwriter yourself, and as the daughter of a great songwriter, you will truly appreciate this, because Bill Cody, one time we were playing Hank Williams Jr. and we were going to play the Blues Man, and it was on Habits Old and New. Great album, probably the best or my favorite of all the Hank Jr. stuff. And Bill asked me, what else, what other songs are on that record? And I'm reading the list of songs now. Now, thankfully, this is not on the air, but we eventually told it on the air because it was such a funny story. And he's like, what songs? And I'm going, oh, let's see, blah, 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 this one, Caliga. And he goes, wait, what? And I go, Caliga. And he goes, spell it. And I'm like, Kawliga. He goes, that's Kalijah, you moron. And I'm like, oh, it's not pronounced how it's spelled. So,
Oh man.
Thankfully, neither Hank Williams Jr. or Charlie Pride or anyone who's had a hit or has sung that song knows about. Well, I guess they all know now that I've told it. But
I probably would have made that mistake too. Don't worry about it.
That's one of my better put my foot in my mouth moments, I think. So.
Oh man, well, I appreciate you being humble and sharing, because we all have those moments. We're all human. Okay, this has been so wonderful. I have just one more question.
Yep.
You've done so many amazing things. What else do you want to do? Do you have any goals? Do you have anything that you're itching to do?
Well, I want to be more patient and be a better dad, because I know a lot of stuff, but at 57, I don't quite have the patience I used to. And my little guy is 7, so I'm tired by the end of the day. So that would be, personally, that would be a really good one. No, I'd love to just, I honestly, I love what I do. I really do. I can maybe think of maybe 5 mornings in my life where I've woken up and thought, oh, I just don't want to go in today. And it's, I'm really fortunate. I talk and laugh and tell stories and play music for a living. And I'm really lucky. And I wake up every day just excited to come in, and I enjoy doing it. So, no, so I don't know. It may not be the most ambitious answer you've ever heard, but I feel pretty lucky, and I just love what I. Yeah.
If you've been living your dream, I imagine that's the answer that you'd give, is that I'm doing it every day. And I think that's the most wonderful answer. Absolutely. I think this is going to inspire a lot of people. I appreciate you just hanging out and sharing your story. I hope you'll write a book of all these stories and insights that you shared with us.
Well, Cody needs to write the book first. I'll write the introduction to the foreword. How's that? Okay.
I'd love to read both books personally, but I do appreciate you hanging out. And you know what? I'm a songwriter and an artist, and I'm not an interviewer, so I was extra nervous to interview an interviewer. So I hope I asked some good questions, and we got all the info that you wanted to share.
Listen, you were terrific, and you've picked my only skill. You don't want me building anything, fixing anything. Actually, that's not true. I can cook pretty well. I could cook you a pretty good meal, but you don't want me to build anything or fix anything for you. So, but if you want me to talk, you've picked the one thing I can do okay. So
well, now I want to know, what do you cook?
Oh man, my wife was asking for years for cast iron skillets, and I resisted, and I'm like, oh, we don't need these things. And finally, there was a great deal on Amazon, and we got a mini one and a big one. And man, I have perfected the steak, either like a New York strip or a fillet, or I'm a ribeye fan, and I can make about a perfect medium rare to medium steak, nailing it just about every time on the cast iron skillet. So, and then now here's kind of a goofy suggestion. And so you get your vegetables and you steam them in the microwave. And then after you finish the steaks on the cast iron, while it's got all that goodness of the steak in there, toss the steamed vegetables in there for about 2 minutes, let them char. and they get almost seasoned from the steak and then serve them. See, it works with asparagus, it works with green beans, it works with almost anything, Brussels sprouts. So anyway, there's my food network. Maybe Trisha will have me on Trisha's Country Kitchen sometime.
I was gonna say we should get to your own segment. Let's get WSM on the phone. You know what's funny? Literally just last week, I was thinking I should probably try a cast iron skillet steak sometime. Like I don't have one, but I've heard it's the best, and you just sold me on it.
Yeah, about 4 to 4.5 minutes on each side gives you just about the perfect medium rare, and then steam the vegetables, and then finish them in the cast iron for 2 or 3 minutes. Yep.
Well, I know what I'm having for dinner tonight. Thank you, Charlie Mattos. I really appreciate it. This is so much fun. I love talking with you.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Truly, I've enjoyed it too. Thank you for asking.
We'll have to catch up again soon.
Sounds good.
You stay well. We'll see you later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Showtime. Guess who's back again? Oh, they don't know. Oh, they don't know. I bet they know as soon as we walk in. Wearing fuzzy things, candy rings, ain't PJ looking so fly. Don't look too hard, you might hurt yourself. We look too damn good to deny. At Frisky Frog. Oh, snap. I'm a dangerous girl with some footies on my beaties. Keep up. So many awesome hits and riders, and we're gonna keep them coming. Keep up. Come on down to the frog and we'll get you Jammie juice and come on. Riders only. Put your candy rings up to the moon. What y'all trying to do?